Well, I didn't prepare. I'm not triggered, but I didn't prepare. So this is a whim. Who do I have in mind? Channels like Answering Adventism or SolaScriptura21. They used to be Adventists. And now apparently their theological purpose is to undermine the message of the Adventist church. And they're both quasi-Calvinist. I'm not sure they understand the theology very well. Or if they do, they don't accept it. If they do, seems like, I would argue. Or when I challenged Answering Adventism for a debate, and he wouldn't do any of the 4 options that I suggested we debate, I offered 4. I challenged the debate and I offered 4 different topics. 4. People don't usually do that. They're usually prepared for 1 topic. I offered 4. He turned them all down. Then he sent me 10 mostly ridiculous topics, which had nothing to do with any of the ones I had challenged him on. Remember, I challenged him. He had never challenged me to debate. I offered 4. He turned them down. He gave 10. I told him each one, which ones I would consider, which ones I wouldn't do, and why. I gave like 3 maybes with it, and then I offered to modify, to incorporate what I challenged on. I did a compromise, basically, if he was willing to compromise one out of his list, and then I never got a response back. And so a lot of people are going around saying I don't follow up on my debates challenges and stuff. That's never happened. It's never happened, unless somebody like followed up with me way after the fact and I just forgot about it. Something, I suppose that's possible, but what's my point? My point is, I'm an Adventist and I'm willing to talk about anything I believe. There's a lot of people going around saying what Adventists believe as if they could speak for a whole group. Can you imagine? Let's look at some of the statements these people make. I do have that prepared somewhat. Let's see. I'm gonna plead my grievances and point out some things I think are not very healthy ways of going about this. Ellen G. White apologists, he says, which can be ambiguous. It doesn't have to be. I mean, nobody identifies as an Ellen White apologist that I know that he knows. Will work night and day. I mean, that's pretty serious. To convince the Christian world that SDA-ism. We're Christians, by the way. We believe the Bible is simply another denomination. No, we're not simply another denomination, although we are another denomination. Of course we are. That's just a fact. Well, at the same time, trying to convert you to SDA-ism. I think that's like a pejorative, maybe, ism. No, actually, Seventh-day Adventist means there's 10 commandments, and we're supposed to be looking for the return of Jesus. That's what he preached. But maybe you don't understand that since you're a all-millennialist of a certain kind, I guess. Good luck with that, by the way. Good luck with that, defending that. Without being, most sane people of that view these days seem to have more dispensational teaching in them. The old all millennialism is not, it's done, dude. It's dead. And if you know something about something, or if you believe that Israel and the church aren't separate, then what do you have? You have nothing. You have the SDA view because it's the right view. It's consistent. It uses the principles that if anything could be called a majority, it would be our view, the historicist view, that the day for a year principle was the majority view in Protestantism. But we're not Protestants. We're not even Christians even, because he left. He figured out that The Sabbath is Sunday, I guess. I'm not sure what his position is. Sola Scriptura is, since you seem to, I've seen you commenting or answering questions to people. Does the law define sin? SolaScriptura21? And if it does, how are you going to square that with, I think you're a Presbyterian. Do you believe Sunday, the Sabbath was changed to Sunday? Tell us, please. You talk a lot about SDA and how they're wrong, but you never tell us what's right. Ask why, because the truth is you are a part of Babylon. You see, this right here is a really common problem. And I mean, the thing is, he should speak for himself. If this was his attitude as a Seventh-day Adventist, and he came to my church, I would have told him what was up. Systems are not people. So when you talk about, because in his other comments recently, he's saying things like, you're a part of Babylon. Oh, it's right here. Yeah, you're a part of Babylon, the fallen churches, and you must be a part of the remnant. So look, I was thinking about making a big long thing of like clips of all the popular, even the conservative popular Adventist speakers who, when they talk on the subject, I could find 10 examples of this if I wanted you. Go ahead and see, this is a problem. These people don't listen to the Adventist speakers. They do their own quote unquote research, they call it, which is just like quote mining from quote mine sites that have been disproven or shown how they're using it out of context, or that it's not even real quotes. Although Sola Scriptura is better about it. He uses real quotes usually. But his commentary or his suggestions, which sometimes he leaves them flat. Look, if you quote Ellen White and you don't give commentary and I complain, I can already see it coming. If someone says, I just quoted Ellen White, I didn't even give any commentary. No, but I know what your position is on how you look at certain kinds of statements. And I've tried to help you see where you're getting it wrong. And some Adventists get it wrong too, I would argue. But when you this is like what we do with the Bible too, right? When you look at the overall body of Ellen White's writings and what she said about different topics, the things you try to, Ellen White thinks Satan's the atonement. I mean, you can kind of say it that way depending on what you mean. But then what if Ellen White consistently and I'm not an Ellen White apologist, I'm just pointing out what you're getting wrong because it's wrong. So you're misrepresenting Ellen White. Ellen White could be, I don't think she is a false prophet, but if she were, I would like to know which doctrine that would undermine of the SDA church. And the reason that matters is this. It's like you guys are acting like, wanting to pause it, like we're going to make Ellen White true no matter what, and that's all we care about. No, it is not what we care about. It's not what I was taught over and over every year in Bible class. This was made clear to me in my whole life. I don't know about you. I don't know what kind of church you went to or what your family was like, but I was at it, pummeled into me that Ellen White is not scripture. Ellen White is from people in the conference office, Washington State, Western Washington Conference. I went to Auburn Academy. I can give you my pastors' names. I can give you a ton of pastors' names. Who said this to me? I can give you clips of them talking about this. So Ellen White is not. There's nothing in Ellen White's writings that even if let's say it was just everybody realized Ellen White's a false prophet. Which doctrine do you think that the church holds to and preaches and teaches and is in the fundamental beliefs? Which doctrine would that affect? Well, the only way it could actually affect the fundamental part of the faith would be if she came up with a doctrine she'd have to come up with a key doctrine, really. But I've asked this to critics, and then I still haven't ever gotten an answer. And I've asked them multiple times. Which doctrine did Ellen White come up with that we believe? Which doctrine did Ellen White invent? And if there isn't one, shut up. You're pretending like we're making Ellen White something she isn't. And look, the Bible calls that there'll be false teachers and false churches. That's what it means to be part of Babylon. Are you saying that that's not? That's what I want to know. Here's the question: Are you saying there isn't fallen churches? Are you saying all churches are right? I don't think a Calvinist can say that, by the way. And then the question becomes, okay, if you're going to take a Calvinist view, on what grounds can you say Adventists aren't saved? I think I want to hear the theological basis that Adventists aren't saved or aren't Christians. Okay. And once you admit, which you'll have to do if you have a shred of honesty in you, which I think you do, I think you'd like to go there, but I'm sure you're wavering on it, even though you say kind of both out of both sides of your mouth on that issue. Well, Adventists can be saved. Well, everybody says that. It's like a different denomination people can be saved. Adventists say that. That's what I was going to say about the different people. They say when they talk about Babylon, like almost without fail, this long spiel about how they don't think only Adventists or that you have to be a Seventh-day Adventist to be saved. So why do you continue to it's like, if you didn't notice that, by the way, how are you pretending like you can make a statement in honesty? Because if you listen to what preachers say about Babylon, they'll say, "Oh, I think there's more saved people in other denominations in the Adventist church." Some of them, the most conservative might say, "Well, they're going to come out of Babylon. They are my." It says, "Come out of her, my people." God has people in Babylon. So, should people believe what the Bible teaches is true? There's different denominations. That's how it is. Do you think your denomination is right? Why is it? I mean, if you're in a denomination that doesn't think it's right, I don't know why you're in that denomination. Like, don't be fooled. We're just trying to get you to be part of our church. Yeah, I have friends in all sorts of denominations that I know are Christians. I know they are. I bet my life on it. I think I know people in other denominations that have a better relationship with God than I do. And I look up to them as good examples. So, like, yeah, there are fallen churches. Every church that isn't right or that clings to doctrines that come from Rome, which have corrupt doctrines in them, which is how the Reformation started. Why do you think, a lot of groups will just dismiss the reformers? Most Baptists do all the time, not recognizing its importance. Adventists recognize the importance of the Reformation, and they look up to the reformers, even though they had certain things wrong, just like I do now, and just like all Adventists normally do. So you're trying to, this is like a conspiratorial kind of fear-based kind of trying to get people to, it's like you want to like create a mob or something to like justify you leaving the church, but without having found truth yet. You just know they're wrong, right? I want to know, why is it wrong? I want theological reasons why what are Adventists wrong about? What when you talk about Calvinist theology with other Christians that aren't Calvinists, if you think Calvinism is true, for instance, and you're telling other Christians why you think Calvinism is true and non-Calvinism is false, do you want them to join your belief in whatever it is you believe that they don't believe? Are you just whatever? Why do you tell people who disagree with you what you think is true in the Bible? Wouldn't you want them to believe what's true? Look, I think any Adventist would tell you, I would. I wouldn't want to make anybody an Adventist other than that they see that it's true and believe it. Because if you schmooze somebody into believing something, that's not really even them believing it. They have to come to the decision on their own. But yes, I think SDA Church is the remnant church in the sense that it's a restoration movement, because it has restored doctrines that were lost, not totally lost. That we didn't invent any doctrines. They existed. We just put them together. The Sabbath is undeniable and obvious. Everybody knows it in their heart, almost everybody, that the Sabbath is Saturday. Sunday Sabbatarianism is dead. Even the kind of derivatives of that sort of theology, they'll say it all the time. John MacArthur says it. I've heard it from tons of people. No, Saturday is the Sabbath. Well, okay. Now the question is, are you going to jettison, the Reformed position on the law, which is pretty ubiquitous? It's just, they certainly pretty much all would say the 10 Commandments define sin. I mean, I don't see how you can get around it. That's obvious in the New Testament. It's quoted from, it's referenced over and over and over regarding love, the same commandments. And then they'll quote some of the 10 Commandments. Jesus did it. Peter did it. Paul does it. James does it. Maybe Peter does it in brief but it's more explicit with Jesus and then James does it. Paul does it. Unless you think the commandments are something unless you think this is the thing that's funny with people. Do you really think the commandments of God, if someone said, do you mean like, when you say the commandments of God, if you'd gone up to Paul or James or Peter or any of the apostles or disciples or the early church members that still had the apostles around and the Christians, do you think if you went to any of them and said, what are the commandments of God? That's like the 10 Commandments, right? You think they would have said no? Just think about that for a minute. Paul, Pharisee of the Pharisees, talking about the law of God at the very beginning of the New Covenant. He has to be referring to Sinai when he talks about God's laws and the people's laws from the Old Covenant. Now, you can make arguments from different texts why it's not the entire law, sure. So go ahead and try to make your argument for, you think it's 9 out of 10? You think that wouldn't have come up at the councils, people having a fit over circumcision? Sabbath didn't even come up. Nobody said anything. Yeah, right. What a joke. Especially with all their history with the Sabbath and disobeying God and all the trouble they had. And even looking at the Jews today and their like obsession with making sure they don't break the Sabbath. I mean, think about that. Think about the Jews still to this day have all these rules around the Sabbath that are like ridiculous. Like you can't press a button or anything electronic could be starting a fire. They have the elevator just goes all day because they don't want to press the button. Stuff like that. Those are descendants of the people from Jesus' day. Do you think when the Christian church was forming, we have this council at Jerusalem and they're bitching about circumcision and getting that worked out? But Jesus did away with the Sabbath. They kept keeping it. They took him off the cross. If he had been teaching them to not keep the Sabbath, that doesn't make any sense. It's ridiculous. They go to the synagogues on Sabbath. No mention of, don't bother honoring Jesus, the creator that's taught in the New Testament. Don't bother. He is God, the God that was in the garden. He rested. He gave us the law. Jesus handed Moses the law on Sinai. But no, the commandments of God are something else. So here's the question. That's just so obviously true. If you're a Calvinist, you ought to know this. Unless you're like the sovereign grace, weird kind of departure. It's totally illogical if you don't think that. So SolaScriptura, what defines sin? Is there a Sabbath? Is it a sin to break the Sabbath? Whether you think is it Sunday? Do you think so? I just wonder about the Protestants today during the 16th century and onward from there. It's like church history is littered with interpretations, but certain things have, there are some majorities, like a day for a year. That sort of idea was there. Maybe not applied evenly, but Adventists just take that because of Daniel and are consistent with it. Does that make the Advent? Certainly you're not going to, too many other denominations believe stuff like we do about hell now. Isn't that funny? These truths that are coming out seem to be becoming more and more prominent. Even Martin Luther believed the state of the dead like Adventists do. That's a distinctive doctrine. And then you have hell, which is growing in popularity. It's clearly the case. No one preaches hellfire like they used to anymore. And now they say we're wrong because we're denying the fire is eternal and all this. And then these same people, mostly when they go to defend hell, they're like, well, I don't think the fire is literal. So SolaScriptura, Tell us what about hell. What's wrong with that? You don't believe that anymore. You jettisoned all the distinctive doctrines, right? Adventists are wrong about everything, right? Tell me, if you came to that conclusion and you knew the doctrine and you've jettisoned all the distinctives, you better be able to give, you better know the arguments. I don't think you do. I think you left Seventh-day Adventists for a myriad of reasons. I think you probably bought into the anti-Ellen White stuff and thought it sounded weird, and maybe you're, I don't know, I'm not going to get into your personal life or anything. I have no idea. I'm not going to speculate too much, but I doubt, well, I would argue that I can see that I've watched you learn as I learn more. So like you didn't have a handle on this stuff, on the doctrines, that what it means to be an Adventist, all ironed out, like, and saw that it was wrong. So my advice on that is that you should not be dedicated, just like Miles. You guys don't know enough. I mean, the only people that should, people who have a ministry devoted to being anti one thing, like, better be some really mature and well-read scholars, and better have a heart for the people that they're trying to, if they truly believe that it's false or whatever. The only people that should do that should be highly educated and understanding whatever they believe now and what that system believed, and have that all worked out before they say much of anything going against something, like what that's your whole like purpose and channel is about. I mean, I kind of think it's kind of embarrassing, really, that people would go that route without having a ton of knowledge about it and being really well read on it before they go out and start being anti a whole denomination. This is a bad idea, dude. It's a bad idea. Maybe some, anti-Calvinists can be that way. I mean, like Leighton Flowers does it pretty the right way, though. He doesn't hate Calvinists. He loves them. So, but it's just funny because you become what you accuse the Adventists of, but they're not actually that way. And then you have made yourself that way towards Adventists. It's pathetic. I guess I could lay out the questions I have for you if you want to try to interact at all. It's just what I'm hoping. Because on one hand, people just believe what they're going to believe. So I don't have high expectations. And so I certainly don't think, or wouldn't think, that people are going to like flock into the SDA church before Jesus returns. But I do think what I've never, for the last several years, the friends I've made, I tell them up front, I'm like, look, everybody, I don't hide that I'm an SDA. But if you bring it up too much, people say you get a bunch of flack for being confrontational. And then if you never bring it up, people like you will come and say, do you know that they believe this, that, and the other? One second. I'll have to get back to you on that.